Working at Walmart was exactly what you would expect. As an 18-year-old, it was quick and relatively easy cash. The managers were flexible on the hours, and that was the most important part to me. I didn't even care that I was only making $12 an hour because I didn't have any bills, and really the only reason I needed a job was to keep my parents happy anyway. Never really cared about money like most people do. Some people care so much about it that it's all they focus on, it seems, while others don't care about it at all. So much that they never have a dollar to their name and get mistaken for lazy. Or maybe they blow all their money on stupid stuff and wonder why they're broke. For me, most of my money went to video games and food, and the rest of it I was able to put away in my savings. I was able to put a decent amount of money away until I had to use all my money for an emergency fund. I had to get a whole new set of tires for my truck, which ran me about $1,000. We just moved a few months before this, and winter was coming, which I wasn't used to icy roads living in Florida my whole life. But since the move to Indiana, I had to be prepared for the brutal winter. My tires were as bare as a baby's bum, so I pretty much had no choice. My parents make a lot of money, but my dad is pretty hard on me and makes me pay for my own shit. There's nothing wrong with that, though. Anyways, I walked into work the day after getting my new tires, a little bit more bummed out when I realized I cared about money more than I thought. My hard-working 6 months of savings went straight out the window. I still had about $300 left in my checking account, so at least I had something. My friend Benny came up to me at some point while I was stocking the shelves. He doesn't work there or anything, he was only there as a customer. He asked me what was wrong, and I told him I wasn't having the best day because Ethan, the night shift supervisor, was pretty much forcing me to stay later than usual. I had to stay until close when I usually left around 7 o'clock, so that meant a whole extra 3 hours. It legit felt like eternity. Finally, when it was time to go home and I was walking out to my truck, I saw someone standing by it. The employees are usually forced to park in the way back of the parking lot, out of respect for the customers, I guess. There were only maybe 3 or 4 cars in that whole section, and I recognized most of them as my coworkers. So what was this man doing leaning on my truck? He was smoking a cigarette and he was talking on the phone. I caught him off guard as he was facing the other way. "Hey man, get off my truck," I said. That's when he replied with, "Oh, sorry man, I was just confused. Sorry to bother. I'll get going." He then walked away without saying another word, and I thought that was very weird. I get into my truck and turn the heat on and scroll on my phone for a second, checking out my missed notifications. I forgot all about the man when maybe 3 minutes later he appeared right at my window. I don't even know how long he was standing there because I didn't hear him. My brain somehow subconsciously must have been warning me about the potential danger. I looked over at him and I literally about jumped out of my seat while screaming the word, "Fuck, dude, get the heck away from me." I then honked my horn and I put the car in drive and drove off. And just as I was doing that, the mere seconds beforehand, he tried banging on my window with a closed fist, probably trying to smash it open. Or maybe he was in a fit of rage. I noticed a butterfly knife in his hand as well. He was definitely trying to mug me or kill me. One of the two. Maybe even both. I was able to get away safely when he started chasing me down throughout the parking lot, trying to run after me. It was only a short drive to the stoplight that was red, of course, so I had to stop, which turned onto the main road. But that gave him just enough time to almost reach me. I looked both ways and made sure there were no cars coming, and I floored it while the light was still red. I left him in a path of dust, and I called the police, and the follow-up was exactly what I expected. The cops came to my door the next day to inform me that he was gone by the time they arrived. They said I did the right thing by calling though, and running the red light. I was working the night shift at Walmart, and it was getting late. The store was almost empty, and the only noticeable sound was a song playing over the speaker. It was that one super famous song by Pitbull. I hate that song because it's so overplayed in this store. I don't know why I'm getting off topic, but I was only 17, trying to earn some extra cash, and tonight was like any other night until he showed up. It was a man probably in his 40s, with scruffy facial hair and a dirty baseball cap. He had been hanging around the store for a while. He didn't look much like a customer to me, just lurking in the corners of the aisles and watching me. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he was just looking for something, but that seemed unlikely after some time. My anxiety started to come to real life after like the 15th time of walking past him in the store after a solid hour. He didn't have anything in his hand, so he wasn't shopping. I genuinely don't know what he was doing, but every time we passed each other, it became increasingly more uncomfortable for me. It started off with a smile and then a wink, and then he even blew a kiss at me. As the hours passed, he got bolder. He started following me around almost, and he was always just a few steps behind. Every time I turned around, he pretended to be browsing the shelves, but I could feel his eyes on me. I told my manager about the guy, and he said he'd keep an eye out, but it didn't make me feel any safer. I continued to do my job, trying to stay focused and not let the fear get to me. When my shift finally ended, I couldn't have been happier to leave. I rushed to the employee entrance, hoping to put some distance between me and the creepy man, but as I stepped outside, I froze. Because there he was, leaning against a beat-up old truck, waiting for me. He had this sick grin on his face, and it made my blood run cold. I turned to go back inside, but he called out to me. "Hey there, sweetheart, need a ride home? It's late and it's not safe out here." I shook my head and I mumbled something about having a ride already. I just wanted to get away from him. As I walked away, I could feel his eyes on my back, and it was as if they were burning holes into me. I got in my friend's car, who was just about to take off, but stayed because she saw what was happening, and we drove away. I thought I was safe, but my heart was still pounding, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the man would follow us. I kept checking the rearview mirror, but there was no sign of him. When we finally pulled up to my house, I thanked my friend and got out of the car. As my friend drove off and I closed my front door, I saw the man's truck parked down the street. My heart literally skipped a beat and I fumbled for my phone to call the police. I told them about the man and they said they'd send a patrol car right away. I watched from my window as the police arrived and they questioned the man, but he denied doing anything wrong and they told him to leave. The next day, I learned that the man had a history of harassment and had been banned from the store. I was relieved, but the fear still lingered. I couldn't help but wonder what might have happened if I had accepted his offer for a ride. I haven't had any problems with him since, but it's creepy to know that he knows exactly where I live. I don't know how he managed to find us because it didn't seem like he was behind us in the car. A real professional stalker, I guess. From that night on, I always made sure to have someone pick me up after my shifts. I was never going to let myself be alone in that parking lot with that creepy man ever again. It was a lesson I'd never forget, and it left me with a sense of dread whenever I shopped or worked at Walmart late at night. It was a typical cold December night, and I found myself once again on the graveyard shift at Walmart. It was eerily quiet, and the fluorescent lights buzzed above as I pushed my janitorial cart through the empty aisles. I'd been working at this Walmart for years, and the only nightmare I was used to were the crazy infamous Karens or Steve, my general manager. But this night was different. It was near Christmas time, which was great because I love this time of year, but we would usually get super busy. It always felt kind of creepy being there alone this late at night. I was the only worker there, as the rest of the employees had already locked up and gone home for the night. I had a routine to follow: clean up the floors, empty the trash, and ensure the store was in tip-top shape for the next day's shoppers. However, something didn't feel right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but a sense of unease gnawed at me. As the hours passed, my unease grew. It was past midnight now when I first noticed something odd. I was in the electronics section, mopping the floor, when I heard a faint creaking sound coming from one of the doors at the back of the store. I paused, with my heart racing. I knew I was supposed to be the only one in the store, and this wasn't normal. I cautiously made my way towards the sound, with my mop handle held like a makeshift weapon. the only self-defense mechanism I really had. The door was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open just enough to peek inside. But what I saw sent me into a different universe. I was absolutely stunned and shocked beyond belief. There were 3 people, their faces concealed by masks. They moved stealthily through the aisles, gathering an assortment of high-end electronics, like headphones, PlayStations, and more. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized they were stealing merchandise right in front of me. I retreated quickly, trying not to make a sound, and I went back to the office to call the police. I dialed 911 and I whispered my location, explaining the situation as calmly as I could. The dispatcher assured me that officers were on their way, but they were still several minutes out. I returned to the scene, hiding behind a stack of pallets, with my eyes fixed on the masked men. They moved swiftly, working together. The tension was rising and I was really scared. I could hear them whispering, and my heart dropped even further when I was worried that they might have seen me somehow. As I watched, a chilling realization crept over me. The masks that they were wearing were more than disturbing. One was a grinning skull, the second was a clown, and the third was a blank face. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. The thieves continued their heist, and I was trapped in this nightmare alone. Finally, I heard the sirens in the distance, which signaled the arrival of the cops. I could see the blue and red lights flashing outside through the store's windows. The strange men must have heard it too, because panic overtook them, and they hastily grabbed their loot, making a run for the back door that they entered from. I stayed hidden, praying that they wouldn't discover my presence. When the police finally stormed in, with their guns drawn, they shouted for the intruders to freeze. There was a brief, tense standoff, but the thieves had nowhere to run. The officers were able to capture them and take them away one by one. I let out a sigh of relief as everything went down. The masks were removed, revealing the faces of the 3 men, each with a wild look of desperation in their eyes. They had been willing to risk everything for a chance to steal Christmas gifts, leaving me to witness a real-life horror show in the heart of Walmart. So now during Christmas, I'll never forget this. It's a daily reminder that even in the most ordinary places, the most unexpected things can creep in when you least expect it. I continued my janitorial duties that night, cleaning up the mess left behind the thieves and trying to shake off the fact that I was probably almost robbed myself or worse. In the end, the true horror wasn't the masks they wore, but the desperation that had driven them to such extremes. I'll never forget this night.